Hello and welcome to Wholesome Evolution. So today I want to talk about my awakening, how my experience was, all the things I went through, how I felt. During the time that I went through my awakening, there were hundreds of thousands of people that were also going through theirs. Now, there is said to be another whole influx of people that are going to be going through awakenings as well. So I want to share my experience so those that are going through changes will know what to expect when they go through theirs. So my awakening started back in 2016, and it was actually right after I moved from an area that was more congested, closer to the city, to an area that was filled with nature, lots of greenery. It was a place that truly made me feel alive. So I began to elevate my emotions, and my well-being just felt so much better. I felt more happy. So one morning, I actually remember waking up, and normally I'd go downstairs and make myself some breakfast with like eggs and maybe some toast with avocado and tomatoes and maybe some fruit. So this morning I woke up and I felt super blissed out, like my energy, I don't even know, like at the time I'm like, where is this coming from? I had no idea. The energy was at an all-time high. And I walked downstairs to go make breakfast, and during this time, normally I'd go make some eggs, and it just didn't feel like it aligned with who I was anymore. It was crazy because it happened overnight. So my body and what it craved began to change. And when I learned about diet changes within other people who went through spiritual awakenings as well, it made complete sense. So before I knew anything about plant-based diet, about animal cruelty, about how it affects the environment, I just completely changed just by listening to my body. So from that day forward, before I was pretty healthy, but I still did consume animal products. But from that day forward, I have not touched any animal products at all. So I cut up some fruit. I had some fruit that morning. And I also, after, putting together my breakfast, I went outside and I was just sitting at one of the tables in the backyard, and I started to elevate even more. Like my vibration started to grow, and it grew and it grew, and all of a sudden I was getting downloads of information, which what that means is that you're connecting to the universe outside of yourself. You are connecting to knowledge that you've also acquired through past lives or before you incarnated here. So I was getting all of this information about how our diet affects our health and our well-being, how eating fruit, eating a high living diet with live foods, with lots of raw fruits and vegetables will help heal us, and it will help raise our vibration. I also learned that our thoughts are so important. So what we're feeling, what we're thinking, we are constantly manifesting within our bodies. And that was, my guides at that time. I didn't know where I was receiving this information, but later on I found out that I was connecting with my guides at that time. So they're just telling me how I can heal myself, and telling me how important our thoughts are. And I cannot reiterate that enough. Like that of itself is all you need to know. If you're going to take anything away from this video and from future videos, is that our thoughts create our reality. So they told me, our environment, our diets are super important. The way we carry ourselves, if we do anything like fitness or yoga, meditation, that's important. But they said, number one thing, what do you think? What do you feel? How do you perceive the world around you? Because that is what's going to cause or eliminate any disease within your body. So that was an amazing moment for me, because I've always been asking. Before I went through this awakening, I was always so curious about how we could heal ourselves. I was curious about many things, and during this awakening, all of my questions that I had asked prior to were being answered. And I was in shock at that time because I'm like, where is all this information coming from? I had no idea. So I'd receive specific information, and right after I would receive this information, like days would go by. So every single day I would experience something different. I'd channel more information, and right after channeling this information, I would hear, go to your computer. And I'm like, okay, like what is going on? So I'd open my computer and a website, like I remember the first time this happened, I was like blown away. A website would pop up with all of this information that I had just channeled. And this website came out of nowhere. Like I didn't do any research prior to on the computer that would have even brought this information up, nothing like that. So it happened one time, and then, again. And then it happened again and again and again. So it was either websites, it was me being brought to YouTube channels. So if I had questions about something, like I would receive information, then I'd have further questions, then my guys would be like, go to YouTube. So either they would completely verify what I was receiving, or they would verify it and give me more information, more than I had already received. So it was a very blissful moment for me. Like, all of my questions were finally being answered after all these years. Growing up, I was always skeptical about things. The way that our reality is run, I always knew that there was more to life than we saw, and more that we were, more than we were brought up to believe. And I even learned about life outside of this planet during this time. So aside from the channeling, I'll bring you to this information as well. So during the time, I was wondering how I was receiving this information. So I asked the universe, asked my guides, unknowingly, asking whoever that source was, didn't know. So I said, where's this information coming from? And I hear, go to YouTube. So I did. And the video that I was brought to was all about channeling. So I'm like, okay, now I understand what's happening. So during your awakening, you may be brought to other people on YouTube, or actually in person, that will give you information that will help you progress during your awakening, that will help validate what you're receiving. It will feel completely magical. It's completely amazing. So yeah, I went through all of that. And then also during the awakening, you are thirsty for knowledge. Like I was so thirsty for knowledge. So after all the channeling, I really dove in, and I wanted to know all about environmentalism. I wanted to know all about spirituality. I wanted to know all about veganism, because now I was vegan. So I was now watching documentaries. I was listening to other people talk about their experiences. I got into different healing modalities. So my thirst just grew and grew and grew each and every single day. I wanted more and more information. Also during this time, I got into meditation, and I started listening to guided, visualizations, and I learned about the law of attraction. So I was listening to all these videos explaining what the law of attraction is, and listening to guided meditations to visualize in order to manifest. And aside from listening to these videos, I would also take the time to meditate on my own. So I would meditate in silence. And during this time, while you meditate in silence, you actually open yourself up. You open your psychic gifts. You're no longer consumed by all of the outside chatter. You're no longer constantly, looking at your electronics all day, listening to, outside information. You're able to hear your inner voice. And unknowingly, I started to grow and evolve with my psychic gifts. And once I started to do that, I was very, very intrigued in, how I could further progress my, my evolution with these gifts. So I found classes. I met up with people who were very psychic, and they would blow me away with the things they could do. There were some people who could read my mind. There were people who could channel very accurate information for me. So I had living examples right in front of me, and I was like, you know what? They can do it, I can do it too. So I began practicing, and I got really, really good at it. And it was so much fun. I would channel for some people. I still do. Right now, it's not a main priority for me, but it's still something that I'm glad I can do. And it's fun. It's a really fun thing to do, and we all have these gifts within us inherently. All of us do, especially when we're children. So I just reintroduced myself to these gifts, because when I was young, I actually was very psychic. Like I had I've had telepathy, which was very, very strong. I would have premonitions of what was going to happen. So many times all these things would come true, and it was just suppressed. So I reintroduced myself to all this, and during this time, I also I just began to feel more and more blissful. I began to feel like I was one with the universe, like I was one with all the animals, all the people. I just felt so much love. And this love that I felt, like sometimes it would put me in tears because of how grateful I was for life, and how connected I felt to everything around me. That was the most beautiful thing that happened during this awakening. I just felt so connected. And prior to this awakening, I had a very difficult life. And many people who go through these awakenings do have a difficult life prior to. Not everyone, but the stories I've listened to, many of them did. And once you go through such a pivotal moment in your life, and you go from living, either a very painful life or a mundane life, or just an ordinary life, to going through this awakening and feeling these emotions that you go through, it is life-changing, absolutely life-changing. Like you never want to go back to the old version that you were. So overall, I felt empowered, I felt blissful, I felt like so magical. Like honestly, these synchronicities would happen during this time. So I would see reoccurring numbers over and over again, like constantly. And at first, I didn't know what was going on. So I'm like, now I know about channeling and my guides. And I'm like, hey, angels, like, why do I keep seeing these numbers? And they're like, go to YouTube. And I did. And the first video, like the way that they would give me this information, it would always be the first video on YouTube, or, if they'd bring me to a website, whatever. So it was the first video on YouTube, and it was all about synchronicities and angel numbers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. So these angel numbers were actually, one way that the universe, that our guides communicate with us to show us that we are in alignment with, our highest version. We're in alignment with our souls. And once you start seeing these numbers, it's evidence that you are beginning to become a deliberate creator. So you're beginning to manifest and open yourself up to infinite possibilities around you. So listened to the video, got super excited. I also learned about different ways that the universe can communicate with you, which can be through like animal totems. So I remember for so long I would see specific animals like over and over and over again. So one of the animals that I saw was a hawk, and it's been following me for quite some time now. And when I see it, for me, what it means is that there's going to be a big shift in my life. There's going to be major changes. And once I started seeing them, every single time something would change, like big. It's like I was opening up a new chapter, and I would see them over and over again, to the point where I remember driving, I was driving to a park to go hiking, and my guides, or my higher self said, you're going to see a hawk. And literally like 1, 2, 3, 4, I look and a hawk flies right over my windshield. And then I'm driving, and I see another one. And I'm like, okay, so not only would I see these animals, but my guides would tell me before that I was going to kind of, ingrain it into my subconscious that I was seeing them for a reason. So it would happen over and over again. Like they would tell me something that was going to happen, and then it did. So those were, some of the ways that they communicated with me. And I also was brought to videos on YouTube that would tell me what was going to happen in the future. So it would be by, tarot card readers. And my guides would be like, all right, go to YouTube And of course, it would always be the first one. And then these tarot card readers, they do different, different piles, different readings, all in one reading. So they'll do like 4 different readings. So they number each reading 1, 2, 3, 4. And my guides would be like, listen to pile 4. So I'd listen to pile 4. And whatever they said at that moment would happen. And sometimes it wasn't right away. Sometimes it took some time. But the things started to actually happen. So I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, so I'm being guided for a reason. And not only that, I was also brought to the information of, what my future would hold, what I was meant to accomplish in this life, and it all aligned with me. So it didn't feel like, for me, it didn't feel like something I didn't want. It was something that I truly always wanted for myself. But, at that time I was kind of nervous, and I didn't know when I was even going to, get to that point, get to accomplishing my dreams. So they showed me visions of what was going to happen in the future. So yeah, that was part of my awakening. There's so much more that happens, but I'm going to make more detailed videos on the specific things that did happen. But overall, it was a diet change. It was feeling more connected to everything and everyone. Just having so much more compassion. It was the feeling of complete and utter bliss, like, oh my gosh, euphoria, crazy amounts of euphoria. It was the thirst for knowledge. It was all the synchronicities. It was connecting with people that were completely like me. So during this time, I fell out of a lot of friendships that just no longer served who I was. And that's okay, that may not happen to all of you, but for a lot of people it does, because your lifestyle begins to change. So once you fall out of, communication with some people, you will be aligned with others who are completely like you, have, the same goals, values, outlooks on life. And at first it was a little lonely, and, I had a lot of solitude for myself. But once I, aligned with my highest self, and I knew that I was going to be brought to people who were like-minded, they started to come in, like, out of nowhere sometimes. Like, sometimes I was blown away, like, where did you come from? How are we so alike? So all of that's what happened. And I hope this video inspires you and, makes you excited for all the possibilities. And, for your awakening, there's so many possibilities that are beautiful. And once you awaken, it's such a beautiful ride. And it completely it changes your life. It really does. So with that being said, I want to end this video off by saying that, everything's going to be great. Absolutely everything. We are elevating. All of us are elevating as a whole. And we are going to continuously move upward, and our lives are going to become easier over time. And despite everything going on in the world, everything will be okay. And, the dark times, if you go through those, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Just keep going, stay positive, and know that, you're going to be okay. Your family's going to be okay. Your friends are going to be okay. Everyone's going to be great. So, all right. Stay tuned for more videos. I will be posting much more content, and I will see you all soon. Bye.